Good evening, I'm Britt Clennett in Hong Kong and welcome to ViewTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Cathay Pacific comes under fire for its massive data breach and hiding it from passengers for half a year. MTR and Leighton Asia question the credibility of a key witness from China Technology as the inquiry into Hong Kong Station's shoddy works continues. And Hong Kong stocks take a tumble with investors jittery amid geopolitical and trade war tensions. First up tonight, Hong Kong's flagship carrier Cathay Pacific is under fire for covering up a massive data breach for more than 6 months. Police are now investigating the case, which has impacted up to 9.4 million passengers. And the airline may face penalties in the EU if it's found to have violated the continent's new privacy regulations. Armand Lee has the story.
Unacceptable. That's what lawmakers are saying about Cathay Pacific's decision to hide a major data breach from its customers for more than half a year. The airline admitted late last night that 9.4 million passengers had their personal information stolen in March. And the IT sector lawmaker is urging Cathay to clarify details of the hack.
Cathay Pacific hasn't indicated that the data were encrypted or not, so assuming that they are not.
The data leaked include passenger names, their travel records, date of birth, address, as well as phone, passport, ID, credit card, and frequent flyer membership numbers. Cathay apologized and insisted no passwords were compromised, adding there's no evidence that any personal data has been misused. The carrier said it noticed suspicious activity on its network in March and confirmed the unauthorized access to its data in May. Its chief customer and commercial officer, Paul Liu, tried to explain on radio today that the delay in reporting the case was to avoid unnecessary panic. But the reasoning hasn't been well received.
It's actually counterproductive to what they are trying to achieve by not reporting it, not being forthcoming and telling the public exactly what happened as soon and as quickly as possible. This is actually going to cause more alarm, not less.
Also phoning into a radio show, Privacy Commissioner Stephen Wong slammed Cathay as unethical for not reporting it sooner. He said even though companies aren't legally required to report data breaches, they have a moral obligation to do so. Hong Kong police is now investigating the incident. The airline has also possibly violated the EU's new General Data Protection Regulation, which requires companies to disclose a breach within 3 days of discovery. Armand Lee, ViewTV News.
To the latest on the inquiry into the shoddy steelworks at Hong Kong Station, the MTR Corporation and its main contractor, the scandal-plagued Leighton Asia, took aim at a key witness from subcontractor China Technology today. As Lydia Sung reports, they grilled Ian Butt over holes in his testimony and cast doubt over his credibility.
Representatives of the government, MTR, Leighton Asia and China Technology all attended the hearing in Tsuen Wan this morning. China Technology's assistant work supervisor Ian Butt was put on the spot after claiming he'd twice seen people cutting short the steel bars at the Hong Kong Station sites. Leighton's lawyer Sean Wilkin questioned whether Butt had tried to stop the workers from shortening the bars. Butt's boss Jason Poon said he did, yet Butt himself denied it earlier. Today, he only said he doesn't remember anymore. MTR's lawyer Philip Bolding, meanwhile, accused Butt of lying and imagining things. He asked Butt why he didn't report the incidents to MTR's frontline staff. The China Technology supervisor said he doesn't remember whether he did that or not, adding he didn't always see MTR staff around at the sites. Bolding also asked why Butt didn't take pictures of the acts for evidence. Butt defended himself, saying he didn't want to agitate the people working at the sites. Commission of Inquiry Chairman Michael Hartman asked Butt again if he is really sure he saw someone cutting the bars and then screwing them into the couplers. Butt confirmed it with a yes before adding that he only said he didn't remember yesterday because he was just too nervous. Lydia Sung, ViewTV News.
Meanwhile, the railway giant said it will follow the government's recommendations to expand its safety tests along the Sha Tin Central link. MTR's operations director, Jacob Cam, told reporters his company generally agrees with an interim report submitted by government-appointed experts yesterday. But he refused to say when exactly the tests will be carried out, only that they will take place as soon as possible. The report suggested the operator cracked open walls of the cross-harbour section of the rail link as well, saying the shoddy works might have affected that platform too. And adding to the railways as well as commuters' headaches, yet another service breakdown this morning on the Chungkwano and Kwantong lines. Passengers had to wait up to 10 minutes for trains. It started around 6 a.m. when trains stopped moving entirely for a while along the Chungkwano line. MTR said it was likely caused by an overhead electricity line failure. The Kwantong line, on the other hand, was hit by signal failures, which made the overall journey about 12 minutes longer than usual. Both lines were back to normal after about half an hour. Sorry, about an hour, I should correct that. And coming up next, the latest from the world of business. All right, let's start with a look at regional markets, which took a hammering, no thanks to trade and geopolitical worries. The Hang Seng Index fell around 1% to close at 24,994 points. Trade war exposed stocks were down, particularly those in the tech sector. Apple component makers AAC Technologies and Sunny Optical Tech both plunging around 7%. Cathay Pacific hit a 9-year low today after it admitted to that data leak we mentioned earlier. It ended the trading day 3.7% lower. Meanwhile, the Shanghai Composite Index traded flat, ending at 2,603.8 points, but losses were felt across the board. Beijing and Hong Kong have signed 15 economic cooperation deals worth over $3.5 billion. Beijing's Vice Mayor Yin Yong and Hong Kong Trade Development Council's Chair Vincent Lo were present at the signing ceremony. The agreements include a laboratory to be jointly set up by the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology and a mainland tech firm. Fitch Ratings' regional headquarters here in the city has also agreed to set up a branch in Beijing. Over in the US, it's shaped up to be a strong third quarter for automakers Ford and Tesla. The firms posted better than expected profits, which sent shares soaring on the heels of a brutal session for the stock market. Tesla CEO Elon Musk made good on his promise to up profits in the latest quarter after boosting production on the Model 3 sedan. Ford, meanwhile, raised investor hopes as it stucks its targets for the year. While profits were slightly higher, the combination of high commodity costs and a slump in sales in China did hit demand for its pickups and SUVs. Apple's CEO took a dig at his big tech rivals over the harvesting of users' personal data, despite its own privacy practices in China having been called out. Tim Cook warned that information was being weaponized by firms to increase profit and says his company backs a US federal privacy law to follow in the footsteps of the EU. Francis Maguire reports.
Protecting personal data is a top priority for many mobile and computer users, especially after big data breaches in Europe and the US. Apple has largely avoided the spotlight, but its CEO sees the collection of customer data as a threat to society. Speaking at a data protection conference in Brussels, he said the iPhone maker is committed to protecting privacy and warned against governments abusing user data and their trust, a concern for democracies around the world.
Gossip is no longer the resource of the idle and of the vicious, but has become a trade. Today, that trade has exploded into a data industrial complex. Our own information, from the everyday to the deeply personal, is being weaponized against us with military efficiency.
Apple designs many products so it cannot see user data. That's why it's largely avoided the scandals that have hit Google and Facebook. Cook also warned algorithms, which Apple's competitors rely on for advertising revenue, were dividing people and hardening views.
We at Apple are in full support of a comprehensive federal privacy law in the United States.
The EU already has one. It introduced the General Data Protection Regulation earlier this year.
Well, China's smartphone makers may have a new rival, India. The country has become the world's second biggest mobile phone manufacturer, with hundreds of thousands of jobs created in the past 4 years. Michelle Hennessy reports.
India's taking on China to be the world's next smartphone-making powerhouse. Big names in the market like Samsung and even China's Xiaomi are all driving cash into the country and bringing manufacturers like Foxconn with them. India's domestic market is deep and its workforce is cheap, while China's labour costs are on the rise. And that's already helped India pull ahead to world #2 mobile phone maker. Reuters correspondent Sankar Patial has been visiting factories, trying to make phones just like their Chinese rivals, but with a more attractive price tag.
I'm standing in the factory of homegrown mobile phone maker Lava International on the outskirts of capital New Delhi. Here, they make smartphones which are sold domestically and also exported. Specifically on this floor, they mount components onto a printed circuit board. This is a printed circuit board, and it looks like this after components are mounted on it. Now, this makes up nearly 50% of a cost of a smartphone.
Smartphones are one of Prime Minister Modi's few success stories. His promise to create tens of millions of jobs as part of a so-called Make in India drive has stuttered on more than one front. And in the run-up to a general election next year, smartphone manufacturing could help him stave off critics.
Time for a break now, but up next, suspicious packages are sent to a number of top Democrats and the CNN newsroom in what authorities are calling an act of terrorism. More on that when we come back.
One world, infinite visions. View TV 6. Only a handful of golfers are invited, with winners from different tournaments. The only World Golf Championships event played in Asia. The WGC HSBC Champions. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Live on Channel 96 View TV 6. Hard-hitting investigative reports, newsmaker interviews, compelling human interest stories, life-changing reports. News magazine that draws you in. 2020, Saturday night at 9:30 on View TV 6. Created by the legendary chef Gordon Ramsay. 9 home cooks sharpen their knives, tie their aprons and battle it out. Cookery combat under extreme pressure. Amateur cooks go through rigorous challenges. Bust a gut to impress celebrity chefs from around the world.
Good luck.
Who can stand the heat of the kitchen? Who can take home a cash prize and earn the coveted title of Culinary Genius? Sunday night at 8 on View TV 6. The hottest local news, trending international stories, weekly review, topics that affect our communities, in-depth analyses and opinions. All that you need is in one place. Weekly review. Sunday night at 9 on View TV 6. In the enchanted land of Equestria, Unicorn Twilight Sparkle and her pony friends take on the adventure of a lifetime. Together they face exciting challenges that they've never had before and discover the elements of harmony with honesty, kindness, laughter, generosity, loyalty, and magic. The main six learn about the most powerful magic of all, friendship. My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Tonight at 7:30 on View TV 6.
Well, Welcome back. When President Donald Trump calls his friends Chinese spies are often listening. That's according to a report by the New York Times, which cited current and former US officials. It comes as Beijing and Washington are locked in a bitter trade feud while at odds over Taiwan and the South China Sea. Ryan Brooks reports.
Chinese and Russian spies are listening in on U.S. President Donald Trump's cell phone. That's according to a New York Times report on Wednesday. It cited current and former U.S. officials who told the Times that when Trump gossips with old friends on an unsecure line, Beijing uses what it learns to try and sway U.S. policy. The report says Trump's aides have repeatedly warned him that his cell phone calls are not secure, but he refuses to give up the phones. The White House did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment on the Times reporting. Officials cited in the report say China has taken a meticulous approach to what it learns from the calls and uses them to find out what Trump thinks, who he listens to, and how best to sway him. Those U.S. officials are also cited as saying Beijing is focused on using what it learns to prevent the U.S.-China trade war from escalating further, and that Chinese officials rely on Chinese businessmen and others with ties to Beijing to feed arguments and views to Trump's friends in an attempt to try and influence him. This year has seen alarms raised several times on cell phone surveillance in the Washington area. In March, the Department of Homeland Security said in a letter to several senators it had spotted activity there, similar to that of tools used to eavesdrop on mobile phones.
In his toughest comments over the killing of Jamal Khashoggi yet, Donald Trump is laying the responsibility on the Saudi Crown Prince. But Mohammed bin Salman appears to be shrugging it off as he finally broke silence over the journalist's death and investment conference in Riyadh. As Lucy Fielder reports, however, empty seats at the forum shows how international pressure is mounting on the kingdom.
For all the glitter and the bright lights, there's a shadow hanging over this investment forum in Riyadh. Global outcry over Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi's death prompted dozens of high-profile CEOs and government ministers to pull out. No one was sure Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman or MBS would even show up. US President Donald Trump says he bears ultimate responsibility for the killing at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. But he did, telling attendees Wednesday Khashoggi's case was painful and justice would prevail. Reuters' Stephen Kalin says last year's event was standing room only with a palpable buzz. This year, empty seats.
Media partners pulled out, and that left the conference without any moderators for the panels. So they've brought in lesser-known figures to moderate panels, mostly from regional media outlets. There were a lot of attendees on the first day, but now on the second day, the number has dropped, and the auditorium is barely half full.
But the Gulf's largest economy remains a magnet for global businesses, from oil majors to leading banks. So for some, at least, it's business as usual.
Despite all this, Saudi Arabia is still doing business. They announced $50 billion in deals yesterday. And, people are here networking. There still is Western representation. There are bankers. There are people, investors looking to do business. They're just not always at the highest level as they were last year. And it's clear from talking to many of them that some of them are frustrated that their CEOs and their top executives have pulled out because they continue to do business here. It's likely that they're looking for ways to continue their contracts, continue their deals with Saudi Arabia, which has been such a lucrative partner for many of them.
The conference is at the Ritz-Carlton. For a time, a luxury jail for dozens of princes, ministers and businessmen. They were rounded up for corruption in a crackdown that started just days after last year's meeting.
Police in the US have intercepted a number of suspected bombs in what officials say they're investigating as an act of terrorism. The suspicious packages appeared to target a few top Democrats as well as the CNN office in New York. Here's Ryan Brooks again with this report.
2 more suspected package bombs have been intercepted in the U.S. On Wednesday, the FBI told Reuters they were both sent to California Democrat Maxine Waters, an outspoken critic of President Donald Trump. TV stations in Los Angeles showed a bomb disposal robot at a local postage facility on Wednesday, though it's not clear if it was handling the parcels in question. It brings the total number of suspicious packages to 8, all of them intercepted before they reached their targets. Officials on Wednesday called it an act of terrorism. Top Democrats, including Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, appear to have been targeted. Investigators were tracking down another parcel they believe was sent to Joe Biden, Obama's vice president. And a device resembling a pipe bomb was discovered at CNN's office in New York. The network's anchors were forced to continue their coverage from the street. Reuters correspondent Jonathan Allen was there.
One thing that links all the recipients of these packages, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, prominent Democrats, George Soros, one of the biggest donors to liberal causes and left-wing causes on the planet, CNN, a non-partisan news organization, but nonetheless attacked by critics on the right as being partisan, including the president himself, who calls it fake news, of course. So what seems to be a link here is that all the recipients so far are, in some ways, criticized by figures on the right.
Those engaged in the political arena must stop treating political opponents as being morally defective.
President Trump, who frequently bashes Democrats and the media, softened his tone at a rally in Wisconsin Wednesday night, joining politicians on both sides of the aisle calling for unity. He also said a, quote, aggressive investigation is underway. It all comes just 2 weeks before the contentious U.S. midterm elections. So far, there's been no claim of responsibility.
Beijing failed to stop a UN Security Council meeting centred on an inquiry into Myanmar's Rohingya crisis. A UN Human Rights Council fact-finding mission showed up to brief council members on what it called an ongoing genocide that is taking place. Security Council members, including Britain, France and the US, had requested the mission attend their meeting to brief them on the latest situation. China, backed by Russia and Bolivia, tried to block the move, saying there's no precedent for this kind of cross-council briefing. But the meeting went ahead after 9 members voted in favour of it, in spite of Beijing's objections.
The UN Charter clearly defines the responsibilities and division of labor of principal UN organs. The primary responsibility of the Council is to maintain national peace and security. It should not get involved in country-specific human rights issues.
In the EU, lawmakers have voted for an extensive ban on widely used throwaway plastics, such as straws and cotton buds. They also upped the burden on manufacturers to recycle more. The bid would get rid of 10 single-use products by 2021, and member states would have to recycle 90% of plastic bottles by 2025. The final rules still need to be approved in talks with member states, though, but the mounting plastics problem, coupled with China's decision to stop processing foreign waste, has pushed the continent to stop passing its trash onto developing countries.
It's killing our oceans, it's killing animals. It ends up in the stomachs of fish and kills them. And at the end of the day, it ends up inside our bodies. There's an impact on human health. There are alternatives which exist, which are not expensive and are often European. So we just change things. At the end of the day, that was the will and the structure of our Commission's reasoning.
Well, it's time now for sports. Champions League action first. Mohamed Salah scored twice to reach 50 Liverpool goals as his side beat Red Star Belgrade 4-0 on Wednesday. Defeat by Napoli last time out gave that this match added significance in the race to qualify, and Liverpool's attacking trio delivered. Salah scored just before the break, then added a second to make it 50 goals in just 65 Reds appearances. Roberto Firmino and Sadio Mane also scored, with PSG and Napoli drawing 2-2. Liverpool are now top Group C with 6 points, 1 more than Napoli and 2 ahead of the French champions.
It was just a good game. It was a good football game, and they could finish the situations because we had the right movements in the right moment. We had the right passes. We had the right formation. The first 2 goals were after a counter-pressing situation, which is brilliant.
To tennis, and the WTA finals in Singapore is heating up. Sloane Stephens moved a step closer to the semi-finals after beating Kiki Bertens in 3 sets. The American took the opening set on a tie-break, but Bertens hit back to level, and Stephens then found herself a breakdown in the decider. Stephens recovered to win 6 of the last 7 games to seal the victory 7-6, 2-6, 6-3. The victory means all 4 players in the red group can still qualify for the semi-finals. Stephens faces Angelique Kerber, who earlier defeated US Open champion Naomi Osaka. In men's tennis, Stefanos Tsitsipas has made a winning start to his campaign at the Swiss Indoors Tournament. Fresh from his maiden ATP title in Stockholm, he brushed aside Jeremy Chardy in straight sets. Tsitsipas broke 3 times as he took the first set, and although his French opponent put up more of a fight in the second, the 4th seed pulled away in the tiebreak to win 6-2, 7-6. It was the 20-year-old Greek's 40th win of the season. Croatian star Marin Cilic, however, was knocked out of the tournament by Romanian Marius Kopel. And German 2nd seed Alexander Zverev swept past Dutchman Robin Haase 6-4, 7-5 to become the first man to earn 50 victories this season. All right, that's it for now, but do join us again a bit later for an update on the stories shaping your world. Bye for now.
Coming up next, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 3.
We enrage. We envy.